The media activity is the precursor. What the Dafiama Porridge is seeking to do essentially is to reset the ideological position of the Ghana Bar Association, and that's going to be very difficult. There's a reason why. The Ghana Bar Association, or many bar associations for that matter, have certain principles and philosophies they stand for. They stand for human rights, fundamentally. They stand for fair trial. They stand for a judicial system that is independent of executive. Every bar association stands for that because these are lawyers and that is their practice. And their practice will be compromised if there are no human rights, if there are no rules of courts that allow everyone to be heard and clear rules of courts, if there are no independent judges, their work will be jeopardized. Their work is also very important in shaping democracy. By reason of this, you have had all the bar associations of the world almost automatically aligning with right-wing political parties. Because these ethos also you will find fundamental to right-wing political parties, human rights, fundamental to right-wing political parties, independence of the judiciary, fundamental to right-wing political parties. And all of those rights that the Ghana Bar Association fights for, it is also the rights that right-wing parties look at. So if you look at the Ghana Bar in particular, it makes it even worse. It was established way back, but its ethics and code documentation was in 1958. Think about 1958. It's 1 year after independence. Think about the struggles that led us to independence. Look at Ghana's situation in 1958 of a right-wing and a left-wing party. Who are the people who are dreaming up this Ghana Bar Association charter? J.B. Dankwa. And so it immediately polarizes the situation. What is the Ghana Bar Association going to look for? Human rights. What is the fundamental anti-human rights regulation in Ghana at the time? Preventive Detention Act. The Bar Association takes a major position against the PDA. Dankwa is arguing in court against the PDA. He's also president of the bar from 1962 and 1963. So the bar is positioned as if it is locking horns with the Nkrumah administration of the left. Okay, the coup comes in 1966. The bar is still there. Many of the important civilian actors in the coup are senior members of the bar. Akufo-Addo becomes Chief Justice. Olenu and all of these left, right-wing lawyers. They are Victor Owusu and others. These are important members of the bar throughout the 60s, Bosman and co., who are now part of the civilian part of the coup, sort of, and railroading Ghana into another constitutional establishment to be led by Buzia. So Buzia comes in, and then there's one or two brushes with the cases in court relating to the 578. And then comes the Buzia's overthrow, and it comes another left-wing military government running through the 70s. The Ghana Bar Association constitutes itself from 1974 towards 75, almost as an opposition to Akufo-Addo's, Achampon's government. Dr. Obeda Samoa, people like Akufo-Addo and all that, were all in the parts of the PMFJ. That was largely propagated by the Ghana Bar Association. Right. Now you come crossover to the election, and then to the 80s, Rawlings takes office. Rawlings is also left-leaning in appearance, and it's a military government. Again, for the whole decade, the Ghana Bar Association stands tall. And who are the members and the leaders of the Ghana Bar Association? Peter Ala Ajete, president of the Ghana Bar. Later on, chairman of the New Patriotic Party. Samuel Okujeto, member of the New Patriotic Party. Kwashi from Takoradi, another member of the New Patriotic Party. All of these people are principal political actors on the right side of the politics and are leading the bar. So again, the bar is seen as opposed to, sort of and then the NDC is born out of the PNDC. So NDC starts and it looks like the bar is kind of against them and that kind of thing. Whilst I say this, I have to say though, for Nana Akufo-Addo in 1995, that he was nominated and being asked to be president of the bar in 1995. He declined. His view of the matter was very similar to what Honorable is saying, that he's a politically exposed lawyer by leaps and bounds, and he doesn't want to be president of the bar after Ajete and Kunyi and all of these people, and so he's not interested because he's going to run for parliament and he'll be an MPP member of parliament. So that said, the people may not be frontline politicians, and that's the crisis. The people in the bar may not be frontline politicians, but by reason of Nena Megache, for instance, is a former Supreme Court judge, you can't say he's a frontline politician, even though he works for Samuel Okujeto. So he's not a frontline politician. But if you can tell ideologically that he's more leaning towards right, maybe by reason of his legal practice, because for the legal practice to be successful, all those fundamentals must be in there, and these are the ethos that the right wing cries for. So what has happened, and you heard it in the press conference that in the interview that Felix Ofosu-Kwakye gave to Bernard Abele earlier in the year, where he said that for 30 years the courts have been against the NDC. This is a conversation. This is the kinds of things that have been established. The bar is always going to be seen as opposed to a left-wing government. It's everywhere in the world it's going to be. So what this rate is intending to achieve, and all the media visiting acting chief just intending to achieve, it's a grand resetting of the ideology that underpins the Ghana Bar Association, and which, in fact, truly underpins bar associations all over the world. And that is why you saw the UK Council writing and taking similar positions as the Ghana Bar Association are taking, relating to the removal of the Chief Justice and all of these things. So it's a grand ideological reset that Dapiama Force hopes to achieve, but it's going to be very, very difficult to achieve it, because I'm not sure why. It will be a tragedy if we're going to have 2 competing bars or 3 competing bars.
It was a gallant decision. The Commonwealth could easily have divulged into almost a whites-only club. So it was vitally important that Nkrumah stay in to cement the loyalty of Ghana to the whole Commonwealth idea. So for Nkrumah to move out at that time would have been catastrophic for British political prestige in the world.
There's an archive of Nkrumah and the Queen dancing together.
Yes.
Here was a woman whose country, whose family once represented empire, was there dancing with their president.
A man could not have done it, because here is our president being respected enough by Queen of England for her to put her arms around him. And she was fairly graceful. She danced like a white woman, but a good white woman.
That's like another version of dad dancing.
Precisely.
The Queen had shown her resolve in Ghana, and there was no sign of the shy young monarch when she joked about the birth of Prince Andrew.
Mr. President, it was a great disappointment to me when my visit had to be postponed 2 years ago. I hope that in due course my son Andrew will be able to come here himself. And perhaps make amends for the inconvenience he caused.
Converged on the airport, hoping to be among the first to see the royal lady of whom they'd heard so much. Most of the tribal chiefs were there, and 40 paramount chiefs, with umbrellas to indicate to the knowing the degree of rank importance. One apologetically explained that as accommodation in Accra was limited, most of them had brought only one wife. Drums announced the arrival of the aircraft. President and Mrs. Nkrumah arrived with members of the government and other persons of importance. And what a majestic sight when the giant Boeing taxied in. No detail was omitted that stamped this as the most memorable occasion in the history of the airport. Her Majesty and the Duke of Edinburgh were here at last. 55 minutes late indeed, but that was owing to the fog-postponed takeoff at the London end. As the Queen was escorted by the President, the Duke walked with Mrs. Fatia Nkrumah, the Egyptian-born lady whom the President married 4 years ago. The Osajifo, as Nkrumah loves to be called, the word means redeemer, presented the chiefs and others of note. Their obvious pleasure showed how keen the disappointment would have been if Her Majesty had not come to Ghana. It all seemed to illustrate the mystique of the monarchy. For while Ghana insists on being a republic and makes it clear to the people that Her Majesty is not their queen, all at the airport received her with as much enthusiasm as if she ruled over them by divine right. The chiefs and such followers as they allowed made up a total of more than 3,000. Quite apart from the wives already mentioned, some of them have more than 50 children. It's as well that most of them stayed at home. When all the greetings and presentations were over, the President and his guests began the 6-mile drive to the Christiansborg Castle. The Duke rode with Madame Nkrumah. The route was lined by fully 350,000 people. Next day, there was a parade of the armed forces in the Queen's honour. Black Star Square cost the strained Ghanaian exchequer £1 million to lay out. But the President needs such an arena when he addresses mass meetings of his people. Hot for you, sir? What must it be for the visitors? But now all eyes were on the troops. British trained and displaying that the highest military traditions were being followed in these days of independence. The Army numbers 6,000. The National Police, 10,000. The pick of them lined up for inspection by the Queen and the President. The Queen could well understand with what pride Nkrumah and his people look upon the army. Independent Ghana is a very young nation, only 4 years old. It was not proclaimed a republic until last year. This was a formal ceremony. On the following day came an informal one, the surfboat regatta, and the display of skill used in civil purposes. As Accra is without a harbour, ships have to anchor a mile out in the roads and be loaded and unloaded by surfboats. Each has a helmsman and 10 paddlers, and as they pack 1 3/4 tons of cargo, and the boat weighs 1,800 weights, strength as well as skill is needed to fight the breakers. The regatta was seen by Her Majesty from a mogul pavilion, a portable one which will be much used during the tour. And here's that strength and skill we mentioned. Naturally, the people of Accra are very fond of the surf boats and the men who man them. Today, they have one regret. When the huge artificial harbour at Tamar, 6 miles away, is completed, the surf boats will be out of business. Perhaps that was one reason why the 1,000 men and the 115 boats taking part determined to put up a fine show. How well they earned their applause. More of the real Ghana was seen at the Makola Market, an association of 80,000 members. Here the Queen met the people, indeed almost rubbed shoulders with them. Every visitor to Accra wants to see the mammies, the plump stallholders who realize that silence has no place in salesmanship. Anyway, it's all here. Gay clothes, they have to be gay to sell in Ghana, spices, vegetables, and doubtless detergents. Impossible here to be unaware of how warm-hearted, vital, abounding with life are the lovable people of Ghana.
Baffour Akoto deɛ ɛnyinaa yɛ panyin no wɔyɛ chairman ɛda ayikofo ano wasom ahemfo no bebrebe deɛ menim sɛ Nana Prempeh a ɔtɔ so mmienu ɔtumfo Asantehene ɔsom no a na ɔyɛ chairman ma no ɔsan ɛsom Nana Opokuare a ɔnso ɔtɔ so mmienu Asantehene ɛna ɔsom yɛnana ɔsɛ tutu a ɔtɔ so mmienu ɔnso Asantehene na wayɛ nnwuma bebrebe ɛna ɔde ama Asanteman.
History is golden, and it is only a present that is animated by history that can create a prominent future. Ghana has seen many gems. And now we introduce Ochami Baffour Akoto, the linguist, the politician, the farmer, philanthropist, educationist, and business mogul. We bring back Baffour because if today we have a constitution that guarantees human rights, we remember Baffour Akoto. If it's about harnessing cocoa and agric resources for Ghana's development, we remember Baffour Akoto. If we talk about development and freedom, we remember Baffour. Ochami Akoto stands for democracy, freedom to develop, anti-imperialism, and a Ghana beyond aid. Baffour Akoto became fully and publicly involved in politics in the period just before the first major by-election in Ghana. It was an election held at Etrimanwabieja. The CPP MP had died in a car crash and a by-election was occasioned. According to Dennis Austin's Politics in Ghana, the entire leadership of the CPP descended on the tiny Ashanti village for the election. It included Kojobochio, Krobeduse, and Bedema. The opposition, led by Baffour, managed to match the government in the campaign, and eventually the opposition candidate B.F. Kusi was elected by a landslide. The opposition gained a new seat in parliament, and this set the tone for the growth in the agitations against dictatorship, concerns about the role of cocoa farmers, and the push for federalism. All these matters culminated in the formation of the National Liberation Movement, formed by Baffour Akoto, with the tacit support of their Asantehene, Prempeh II.
Baffour Akoto deɛ wakonko dene na wagye Santeman so asi hɔ wama Santeman so anim abenyam ɛne wama Ghana nso abenyam efisɛ nyɛ Baffour Akoto a ka bibia ne hɔ sɛ MPP one kofa MPP by na MPP na wo free ne MPP ne maame ne hwan MPP ne papa ene hwan MPP ne papa ne maame ene NLM yes o hwemu a na wo ye mu nyina no e free National Liberation Movement mu National Liberation Movement no e Asantehene party ene wo ne chairman e de to ano the chairman Baffour Akoto wo konko dene e ma ya kopum awieye
After the opposition's victory at the by-election, Baffour wrote to Nkrumah thus, quote, "My supporters and I have won our first victory, the forerunner of many more crushing victories. We have defeated you and your supporters, and we will continue to defeat you whenever and wherever we meet you at the polls." End quote.
Most people forget that Busia first came into the Legislative Council Assembly as a nominee of the Asante Council, the work of Baffour Akoto and Prempeh II. Baffour's struggle was that he knew he himself didn't want to take the front seat. So he went around looking for people, B.F. Kusi, the Dumako men says, trying to entice them to enter politics so that they would defend our traditions, they would defend freedom of speech. So when we are celebrating Baffour Akoto, we are looking for an icon of fearless courage in politics, where now every young lawyer can go and file a writ of habeas corpus. Habeas corpus says, "Thou shalt present physically Kwame Pianim to be examined by a court." And remember, this days back to the lords when the British lords were powerful, and then the kings were also powerful, and a small guy will go and stand in front of a chief and say, "Thou shall present Kwame Pianim for examination by a court of law." And that's what we owe to Baffour Akoto. Once Baffour Akoto demonstrated that selfless, remember, he wasn't doing all this for himself or for his family. He sacrificed his family, he himself, in order to push people like Busia forward, Dombo, S.G. Anto, Jato Kalo, and the other people he brought together to form the NLM, later on UP, and so on, Aram Ponsa, and later on people like Kwamna Battels followed in his footsteps of courage, including recently the late Dr. Kwame Amaku for IC Kwe. They followed in that selfless sacrifice of their personal freedoms, their personal wealth. Apiamenka sacrificing his personal wealth in order to advance the nation, not themselves, not their families.
Thus, Baffour and his party, the NLM, won some seats to gain presence in the 1956 Parliament. The list included stalwarts like B.F. Kusi, K.A. Busia, Crunchy Taylor, Victor Owusu, and Joe Appiah. The activities of the NLM and its opposition to the CPP occasioned violent clashes between the CPP and the NLM ahead of Ghana's independence.
It became unsafe for Nkrumah and his ministers to visit Ashanti. The governor, Sir Charles Arden Clark, was thought to be a supporter of Nkrumah, and when he came to Kumasi for a routine visit, he received a rough reception.
The Ashantis had come to the conclusion that he was Nkrumah's mouthpiece and not the mouthpiece of the British government, and that anything he came to say he had previously discussed with Nkrumah, and maybe because Nkrumah could not visit Kumasi at that time, he had come forward as governor to put across Nkrumah's views, and therefore they decided if Nkrumah could not come, his surrogate should not come.
The violence occurred when it was rumored that the agents of the CPP had stabbed and killed Baffour, the propaganda secretary of the NLM.
The intimidation turned to killing when the CPP's propaganda chief stabbed to death E.Y. Baffour, a National Liberation Movement leader.
Oh God, when, after Baffour's death, we saw that, oh, I see, if the sin has become killing, then we shall also wake up and kill. Then we started vigorously with anybody. We were fighting here and there.
The media activity is the precursor. What the Dafiama rate is seeking to do essentially is to reset the ideological position of the Ghana Bar Association, and that's going to be very difficult. There's a reason why. The Ghana Bar Association, or many bar associations for that matter, have certain principles and philosophies they stand for. They stand for human rights, fundamentally. They stand for fair trial. They stand for a judicial system that is independent of executive. Every bar association stands for that. because these are lawyers, and that is their practice. And their practice will be compromised if there are no human rights, if there are no rules of courts that allow everyone to be heard and clear rules of courts, if there are no independent judges, their work will be jeopardized. Their work is also very important in shaping democracy. By reason of this, you have had all the bar associations of the world almost automatically aligning with right-wing political parties. Because these ethos also you will find fundamental to right-wing political parties, human rights, fundamental to right-wing political parties. Independence of the judiciary, fundamental to right-wing political parties. And all of those rights that the Ghana Bar Association fights for, it is also the rights that right-wing parties look at. So if you look at the Ghana Bar in particular, it makes it even worse. It was established way back, but its ethics and code documentation was in 1958. Think about 1958. It's 1 year after independence. Think about the struggles that led us to independence. Look at Ghana's situation in 1958 of a right-wing and a left-wing party. Who are the people who are dreaming up this Ghana Bar Association charter? J.B. Dankwa. And so it immediately polarizes the situation. What is the Ghana Bar Association going to look for? Human rights. What is the fundamental anti-human rights regulation in Ghana at the time? Preventive Detention Act. The Bar Association takes a major position against the PDA. Dankwa is arguing in court against the PDA. He's also president of the bar from 1962 and 1963. So the bar is positioned as if it is locking horns with the Nkrumah administration of the left. Okay, the coup comes in 1966. The bar is still there. Many of the important civilian actors in the coup are senior members of the bar. Baffour Akoto becomes Chief Justice. Olenu and all of these left, right-wing lawyers. They are Victor Owusu and others. These are important members of the bar throughout the 60s, Bosman and co., who are now part of the civilian part of the coup, sort of, and railroading Ghana into another constitutional establishment to be led by Buzia. So Buzia comes in, and then there's 1 or 2 brushes with the cases in court relating to the 578. And then comes the Buzia's overthrow, and it comes another left-wing military government running through the 70s. The Ghana Bar Association constitutes itself from 1974 towards 75, almost as an opposition to Akufo-Addo's Achampon's government. Dr. Obeda Samoa, people like Akufo-Addo and all that, were all in the parts of the PMFJ. That was largely propagated by the Ghana Bar Association. Right. Now you come cross over to the election, and then to the 80s, Rawlings takes office. Rawlings is also left-leaning in appearance, and is a military government. Again, for the whole decade, the Ghana Bar Association stands tall. And who are the members and the leaders of the Ghana Bar Association? Peter Ala-Ajete, president of the Ghana Bar. Later on, chairman of the New Patriotic Party. Samuel Okujeto, member of the New Patriotic Party. Kwashi from Takoradi, another member of the New Patriotic Party. All of these people are principal political actors on the right side of the politics and are leading the bar. So again, the bar is seen as opposed to, sort of the... And then the NDC is born out of the PNDC. So NDC starts, and it looks like the bar is kind of against them and that kind of thing. Whilst I say this, I have to say, though, for Nana Akufo-Addo in 1995, that he was nominated and being asked to be president of the bar in 1995. He declined. His view of the matter was very similar to what Honorable is saying, that he's a politically exposed lawyer by leaps and bounds. And he doesn't want to be president of the bar after Ajete and Kunye and all of these people. And so he's not interested because he's going to run for parliament and he'll be an MP member of parliament. So that said, the people may not be frontline politicians, and that's the crisis. The people in the bar may not be frontline politicians, but by reason of Nena Megache, for instance, is a former Supreme Court judge. You can't say he's a frontline politician, even though he works for Samuel Okujeto. He's not a frontline politician. But if you can tell ideologically that he's more leaning towards right, maybe by reason of his legal practice, because for the legal practice to be successful, all those fundamentals must be in there, and these are the ethos that the right-wing cries for. So what has happened, and you heard it in the press conference that, in the interview that Felix Ofosu-Kwakye gave to Bernard Abele earlier in the year, where he said that for 30 years, the courts have been against the NDC. This is a conversation. This is the kinds of things that have been established. The bar is always going to be seen as opposed to a left-wing government. It's everywhere in the world it's going to be. So what this rate is intending to achieve, and all the media visiting acting chief just intending to achieve, it's a grand resetting of the ideology that underpins the Ghana Bar Association, and which, in fact, truly underpins bar associations all over the world. And that is why you saw the UK Council writing and taking similar positions as the Ghana Bar Association are taking, relating to the removal of the Chief Justice and all of these things. So it's a grand ideological reset that Dapiama Force hopes to achieve, but it's going to be very, very difficult to achieve it, because I'm not sure why. It will be a tragedy if we're going to have 2 competing bars or 3 competing bars. Sorry we've kept you waiting for too long, but the big interview is here. The former president of the Ghana Bar Association, indeed, former president of Ashanti Bar Association, indeed, former secretary of Ashanti Bar Association, yet again, former secretary of the National Bar Association. Baffour Akoto, lawyer, is here in the studio. Good evening, sir. Good evening. It's a pleasure. And we're going to have a big conversation tonight, but the conversation is political. The New Patriotic Party goes to the polls to elect a leader after Mahamadou Bawumia's election in 2023. The NPP lost the election, and therefore they have to go back and elect a leader. Mahamadou Bawumia is contesting, of course, is the obvious front runner. But there is also Kennedy Ejapon and Kwabena Ejapon and Dr. Osei Yao Educhum completing the list of 4 who will be voted upon on 31st of January. Most media houses are covering the story, and the big story is who do you think is going to win? The last maybe 15 years of Ghanaian politics has been enjoying polling quite a bit. But over the last 2 years, it's been at the front of the political conversation, polling. When we started covering politics, nobody was polling. Nobody polled 2000 elections. In fact, if anyone polled it, we were the first to poll. 4 of us from Joy FM traveled around the country to ask people who they were likely to vote for in 2000. But that was very cursory. These days, polling is important. As important as polling has also come another phenomenon with our politics, endorsement. It used to be part of American politics. It still is a big part of American politics. I've not yet seen that big in the UK, but it's creeping in. But now, endorsement has become important. The purpose of endorsement is that people who have lived a good life, people who are respected in society, are called upon by candidates to say that if you agree with my philosophy after you have spoken with me, can you please tell the media that you will support my campaign? So endorsement, which is a critical part of American politics, has become part of Ghanaian politics. And most of these endorsements will be done through media interviews and press conferences, etc., etc. Tonight, we have 2 of such endorsements, not 1, but 2 of such endorsements. Our first conversation is with the former president of the Bar. Good evening again, sir.
Good evening, Paul.
Everyone wants me to ask you before we get to politics, the Constitution Review. They've come up with many, many things. We have had occasions on this program to have lawyer Baffour Akoto of Mensha South to talk about it. Other people have been speaking about it. Joy FM's current affairs program, Newsfile, has spent a lot of hours talking to, indeed, the chairman and those who wrote the document and all of that. We are quite worried here on Good Evening Ghana that the document presented to the president is said to be a preliminary document. I mean, we're quite confused about that. That after so many months, they sent a preliminary document to the president and will be sending another one. And also they claim that it was read with a bit of errors and all of that. So that has been the principal concern, as I check, of non-lawyers, but who are interested in politics. You, from where you sit, must have been principally interested in this process as former president of the Bar, as a former president of Ashanti Bar. You've been in bar politics for 35 odd years or so, and you've been at the heart of legal practice. You've been part of those championing for the Court of Appeal to come to Ashanti region. Today, people don't even know how much you guys had to say to get the Court of Appeal to Ashanti region, for traveling all the way from Ashanti and Tamale to come to Court of Appeal. I remember those days because I had just started journalism. You guys were fighting for it. And now Court of Appeals are everywhere. So you've been at the center of this constitutionalism. Never mind the family you come from. Your father is a key politician, founding member of the NPP. So looking at the constitutional review process and where we are today, what were the sticking points for you?
Paul, it's rather unfortunate. For me personally.
Unfortunate is the word you use.
Yeah. For me, I'm not really a fan of the whole constitutional review process. You see, I think that our constitution has served us well. And I'm one of those people who was really, really excited about this wholesale review that we've had. But one of the things that got me disappointed as a very personal thing is that our constitutional history has always taught us that our constitutional review committees are always chaired by persons who have the right to practice in the Republic of Ghana.
I don't get that.
You see, you must be a lawyer who has a right of audience before the court, or you must be enrolled on the roll of lawyers in Ghana.
Or called to the Ghana bar.
Yes. And either a judge, a superior court judge, or a lawyer. I mean, SKB Asante, Professor Albert Fiajo.
SKB Asante was the pre-constitution review.
Yes.
Those who did the research for this
and he was one Solicitor General.
Oh, he worked at the Attorney General's department?
Yeah, he was a Solicitor General.
Yeah, okay. That's high profile.
Yeah, Professor Albert Fiajo, one of the greatest.
That was the Mills era.
Mills era, you know, over the years. So for me...
Professor Fiajo was a teacher, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But he was called to the bar?
Absolutely. One of the maybe the greatest professors of comparative law we've ever had in this country. And then you had Professor Raymond Atuguba as a secretary to the committee,
absolutely.
Accounting Appearment and everything. I know this current committee also had lawyers, but I would rather we've had somebody who was called to the Ghana bar.
Well, H. Kwesi Prempeh we checked, he's called to Washington, D.C. bar.
Yeah.
And he's a professor of law.
Yeah.
He's Ghanaian.
Yes.
He worked with the CDD as well.
Absolutely. But you see, I would rather, because you see, what is bothering me is that we had one by Professor Albert Fiajo, and it was shelved. Now, the president in his New Year's message is telling us that now there's a zeal to push it. Is it because now it's coming from civil society?
What is coming from civil society?
The current one, because it's headed by civil society. And
that's how you describe H. Kwesi Prempeh?
Absolutely, because if you're not called to the bar in Ghana, we cannot consider you one of us properly so-called. I mean, he's a Yale-educated, fine, brilliant individual. But for our purposes, he's not part of those of us who have our names enrolled on the roll of lawyers.
What difference does it make?
It makes a lot of difference.
We are all connected, all Ghanaians are connected to the operation or the operationalization of the Constitution.
You see, Paul, one of the greatest problems we face in this country is trying to westernize our constitutional experience. You get the point? Because the daily grind of what happens in the courtrooms, what happens in daily practice, opens your mind to certain nuances, social, cultural practices that you can never experience unless you're part of the system. You know, talking about certain things and practicing certain things gives you a different perspective. I would rather somebody who had dealt with the thing in part of his daily grind practicing, dealing with the process, more than a civil society person. For me, that's a very personal opinion. So,
okay, so you're saying that is your strongly held opinion?
Absolutely. That I would rather the president...
But is a constitutional document from lawyers, for lawyers, by lawyers? Is that how we should look at it? Is that how America looks at this constitution?
Oh, constitutions are living organisms, that's what we are told. It's basically the foundation of civilization in every society. So it's peculiar. For example...
So it's broader than just law.
For example, in our constitution, the laws of Ghana includes customary law. Do you have customary law in the United States?
No.
So you get the point. Directive principles of state policy. These are all, you know...
No, my question is a document for lawyers, by lawyers?
Well, you see...
To be experienced by lawyers?
It's not a document for lawyers, but it's a document for the whole country. But, you know, you need lawyers to help with constitutional...
Absolutely, but that's why the Constitution itself says that whenever there's confusion about what we are saying, go to the judges.
Absolutely.
They didn't say go to doctors. They didn't say go to the Metropolitan Assembly. They didn't say go to the military headquarters. They said go to the judges. They will tell you what we meant, even if we are dead 100 years. So therein lies your point. So it's really a document for lawyers.
Yes. You know, the point is
for an ordinary Ghanaian, you have a problem with the Constitution, you need a lawyer.
Absolutely.
So it is a document for lawyers.
To invoke the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, to interpret any provision, you need lawyers.
I think we can agree that's a document for lawyers. A document where people write and say that we may all die 100 years later. 500 years later, when we are dead, and you want to understand what we wrote by, go and ask the judges.
Absolutely.
Of course, judges are not there. Those judges who you'll be asking may not have been born. So it's really a document for lawyers. So you're saying that drilling that further down, it then becomes a document for the lawyers in the peculiar brackets.
Absolutely.
So if you want to review it, you can't have someone who is outside of this group to lead the process. Absolutely. Even if you have a Charlotte Osei, who's called to the bar, you have a Justice Adinyira, who is a Supreme Court judge. Yes.
I think, yeah, all of those.
They are lawyers, so they can fill in that space,
but you
can
see,
they?
The chairman is the face of it. You know, you have something like the Albert Fiaggio Constitutional Review. This is each Kwesi Prempeh's one. Yes. So no matter what, the chairman will always be the face. We always say that Nana Dr. SKB Asante was the key person. So that, but that's my personal view.
Okay.
Put aside, you see, one of the things that feeds into my cynicism is the zeal that has characterized the current Constitutional Review Commission. The president has announced that he's going to go about it. What I've seen is that when the Constitution was being drafted in '92, we really didn't have civil society. We didn't.
Not much.
With the
just maybe the Chronicle.
Yeah. With the evolution of our democracy, we've had what I call the oligarchs of our democracy, where a group of people now control public opinion. And you see that basically politicians have been sort of like bowing to them, tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine. When they say this, we have it. When they say this, we have it. So when I see that now there's a zeal to have the Constitution amended because now a key person from that constituency is headed, then you start feeling a bit skeptical. Like, you know, my colleague Thaddeus, sorry, I'm not particularly a fan of...
well, Thaddeus has put a Facebook post and said, don't change the Constitution.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with it.
You know, Paul, the problem that we face, is it a constitutional problem or bad governance problem?
You didn't quite land on the origin of this review, the civil society origin. You said you are worried by that.
Yeah, because what I'm saying is
because you think the president is responding to it.
Most presidents we've
as
had,
politicians are doing these days.
Normally, they do the bidding of civil society. How many of them stand up against them? And it's now becoming like what I call the oligarchs of our democracy. Their view becomes public opinion. You know, when they want this, you see President...
maybe we think our view is public opinion, but it's really not.
No, but you see, the thing is that the agitation for constitutional review really came from them.
Yeah, to a large extent. No, but Akufo-Addo responded by asking Chairman Sabosu to do something.
Yeah, but you see, the point that I'm trying to say is that when people are not at the seat of the table and they are asking for something, is it really because the Constitution is that bad that needs wholesale reform, or people must be at the seat of the table? I may be cynical about these things. I'm not particularly a fan of that, as I said. But you see, that for me, is, I agree with the sorry principle that there's really not much to change, because the problem that we face in Ghana is bad governance. There is no provision in the Constitution that says a public official can be corrupt or steal.
So if we're having corruption, we shouldn't look at the Constitution.
It's not a constitutional problem. It's how
maybe the Constitution is silent here, loopholes there, lacunas there, that is allowing these things to happen.
Our directive principles of state policy says that we should develop the whole country. If politicians decide to develop the center of Accra, what has the Constitution got to do with it? And, you know, I'm supported by distinguished authority on this point. When, I think about a couple of years ago, I was still bar president, UPSC had an honorific lecture to honor the legacy of Dr. SKB Asante. And in his acceptance speech, he said that, look, we are facing governance issues. For me, the things that we complain about are really things that is because of bad governance. And the bad governance is not as a result of a constitutional provision.
So the Constitution says a minister, the president must have 50% of his ministers must come from Parliament.
Yes.
Clearly, the president's hands are tied. The president wants Yabuafo to be X or Y. He checks the list. Yabuafo is not a member of Parliament. Somebody goes to the president to lobby for Paul Adumoche. Look at his CV. I think he can do it. So, yeah, I agree with the CV. Oh, is he a member of Parliament? We are running short of numbers. That's what they are talking about. That's what they mean. That this provision is creating a problem. So take that provision away. That's what they mean.
Yeah. So wholesale. Tinker maybe this.
That's an ongoing argument. Wholesale or tinker with it. Yeah.
What is it intended to achieve? If it's intended to
improve the governance system,
you can then have, ministers out of Parliament.
Yes.
If you have parliamentarians who decide that, listen, we are always going to go in line with the three-line whip, it comes back to nothing. Because basically, unless you have a situation where you may have a situation...
Yeah, you're right. We're seeing this in America.
Where you may have the minority controlling Parliament, and maybe a different party.
Yes, but if the same party,
like, for example,
the executive,
if you look at the current
election, to the situation today,
the current election results where the NDC has a substantial majority.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that if you take the Atoforsons and the Governors Agboja out and replace them with non-ministerial parliamentarians, they're going to put President Mahama in check. They're just going to approve just as they're doing. So the issue is that if you have people who have the power, they're not going to use it. It doesn't really come to anything.
No, the issue is also the schedule of the minister, who is also a member of parliament.
Yes.
That's part of the problems to be solved. That he gets so busy. Atoforson is finance minister, and he's also a member of parliament. Some people think you don't need both. Let him get out of it. And,
yes,
and
granted.
Yeah.
But if the person comes to sit in parliament and leaves parliament, you know, at times you watch parliamentary proceedings.
There's nobody there.
Well,
you still are not getting the time.
You get the time. I mean, it depends on the individual.
Okay, so you're right. Because in America, if the White House has is blue and the Congress is blue, nothing happens.
You see, even in those countries, you can have a situation where some senators can disagree with their party.
Yeah, those in their cultures.
Yes, in their cultures. We don't have it here. So for me, well, I mean, I may be wrong, but I'm very serious.
Okay, so your concern is that moving to amend the Constitution is a red flag because there's no problem with it. That's why Thaddeus agrees with you.
We should actually look at getting better governance.
And then you're also worried about the source of the motivation. The foundation of this whole conversation is coming from a group of people you call the oligarchs of democracy.
Let me give you an example. We are fighting corruption.
Yeah.
There's a change in government. You have an attorney general who comes to meet people being prosecuted. Then he decides to enter NP for all those people coming from his party, and he's now prosecuting a new party. You get the point? Why don't we let the process go? For example, today we heard that the former finance minister, there has been collaboration to have him extradited. There is this former Maslok woman, what's her name?
Sedinam Tamaklo.
Yeah, who's a convicted felon. He's the same United States. Why is he not being brought to serve a sentence? A court of competent jurisdiction. So you see, when you have such behavior by politicians, and you have an attorney general, not the current one, but the office of attorney general, created by the Constitution, not even by presidential fiat, and people deliberately not using their power, because it would have been better if the attorney general had said, okay, fine, these people are being prosecuted, they're in my party, let them go through the process, like Jackie Kwesi, acquitted. Nobody can hold it against him. You get the point. And then you prosecute it. I'm just saying that, look, today, if there's a change in government, anybody standing trial now, irrespective of the evidence, the Attorney General will enter and
the Attorney General will be directed to enter by the politics.
So if we have such behavior where politics comes into prosecution and Attorneys General decide that, listen, we're going to be political in our evaluation of evidence before courts, what are you going to achieve? Which constitution says that the AG must, even though the right of NP is there, must do it politically? So the issue for me is bad governance and bad ethical behavior on our part. Look, institutions over the years have always thrived on ethical behavior of those charged with it. Look at Emil Short Ashraj at the early days. Kofi Kumadon at National Media Commission. He stood up to Dr. Obeda Samo that, look, you cannot appoint state editors of state-owned. He stood and said, look, I'm not going to take it.
And he won the argument.
He won the argument. You know, the EC having lawyers separate from the Attorney General. You get the point. Aferijan. You know, so what I'm trying to say is, that when you put people in power without ethical behavior and they decide to have partisan considerations, you're going to reach that stage where no matter, even if the Constitution is drafted in heaven, it would, and it's being enforced by demons, you're just going to come back to the wrong thing. So for me, we have to deal with the problem. The problem for me is, how do we get governance done? How do we get ethical governance?
But by laws, isn't it? We get governance done by laws. So we do have to look at the laws and strengthen some of them.
And if the laws exist and the laws are not enforced, because, for example...
Your view is that what we have is okay?
No,
Akufo-Addo's legendary view.
Absolutely, because my point is, for example, the president has the right to fire a minister and order the Attorney General to prosecute, or the OSP to prosecute a minister. But if a minister is engaged in egregious conduct, and because of partisan considerations, the president covers it up, or the president decides that, look, let's shelve it. And then the Jantua principle that we have in our country, where all big men will come telling you this, that. So at times, even the way we behave ourselves, makes it difficult for the Constitution to achieve its intended objective. So I would rather we spend time, I don't know how we're going to do it, making sure that we have a road to Damascus conversion where we start deciding to do things right. How are we going to get it? Oh, that's a difficult question.
President Kufuor said in Ghana, as far as this conversation is concerned within the civil service, he said in Ghana, people pretend to work and we pretend to pay them.
Absolutely.
And until we sit down and agree that this is the salary that this person deserves, like Lee Kuan Yew did to his ministers, we're not going anywhere. But that's only one window.
Example. The Ghanaians who work at APSA, Anglo Gold, and all those foreign companies, MTN, they're the same Ghanaians who work at Lands Commission. You get the point? So it's an attitudinal thing. Why is it that when people work in government institutions, they decide to go to work anytime and come back?
Because they pay them less. They don't want to pay them more.
What does the Constitution say about that? So you see, you can have all the body of laws. If you don't have ethical behavior and you don't have this enforcement, like what Lee Kuan Yew and Co did, make sure that the laws are applied. People do what is right. We would achieve so much. Because if somebody is made, if you look at the Public Accounts Committee, Auditor's General Report, when we read some of the egregious things that we see, how can somebody be a district finance officer in some remote, poor area? And then when monies are brought there, it's applied for other purposes. It comes to the PAC, there is this back and forth. The next time, everybody goes home to sleep. Why is it that we are so interested in prosecuting politicians, but not public officials who steal money? You get the point. When you go to the ports, what happened there?
Because maybe the prosecutions are animated by politics.
No, the daily grind, what people face at the ports. For example, we even create conditions for corruption. Look at this DVLA rollout. We have to send every car to DVLA to migrate. How many cars are there in Ghana? So what is going to happen is going to be a chock-a-block at the DVL head office.
They have to pay somebody to pay somebody.
Absolutely. So you see, the thing is that these practices that we engage in daily, you get the point? Where in the Constitution does it say that politically exposed persons should be sent to head technocratic institutions? Why should your National Health Insurance Authority
be headed by somebody appointed by the president?
Even if the president, why should somebody...
You make some good points. But